But these days, it depends on a lot of, where you come from. Are you a person of color? Are you LGBTQ? When you're painting your retirement picture, to help us understand some of what same-sex couples face in retirement and discuss diversity issues when it comes to planning your retirement, we invite into the program Robert Espinoza. He is PHI Vice President of Policy. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me.
So when we talk about different demographics, what are we seeing among the changing demographics in our country as a larger portion of the population moves into retirement? Who is prepared? Who is not prepared?
Yeah, I think we're seeing that America is really changing quickly. We're seeing a rapidly aging country. About 10,000 people turn 65 every day. We're also becoming a country that's more racially and ethnically diverse. Within a few decades, people of color will outnumber white people nationwide and in some states sooner. And we're seeing kind of the first generation of out LGBT people at all ages, including the first generation of LGBT older people who have been able to who've been able to age openly in their lives and in various settings. Unfortunately, it comes with a lot of discrimination as well, from violent and racist policing to anti-LGBT discrimination in a variety of settings, to just ageism that has allowed so many people living in nursing homes to die during COVID-19. It's how do we create a country that really embraces this diversity, but also undoes generations of discrimination?
Hey, Robert. So we just had the anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court case that legalized same-sex marriage, which I'm sure in a lot of people's minds kind of cleared the path, around issues of taxation, inheritance, etc. But for those at home, if you can kind of explain the remaining legal or even financial hurdles specifically facing same-sex couples around issues like retirement or inheritance.
Sure. So, I think if you imagine an LGBT older person today in their 80s, in their 70s, 60s, etc. They have seen monumental changes in their lives, from seeing their sexualities and their gender identity stigmatized, to being seen as a mental illness, to being criminalized and denied basic rights under employment and housing, and until a few years ago, marriage, as you mentioned. I think that lifetime of discrimination adds up in your bodies, in your minds, and in your checking account. I think a lot of LGBT older people are entering their older years having experienced that lifetime of discrimination in employment, which means that their assets and their income and their retirement savings are simply smaller. The other piece that I'll mention is that, it's one thing to be protected by the law. It's another for that to be protected in daily practice, right? And many LGBT people at all ages will talk about how they are treated differentially in many settings, and it still affects their ability to age and retire.
So I am curious, Rob, what does someone who might be in their 50s or 60s, who happens to be lesbian, gay, transgendered, bisexual, who isn't in the proper position for retirement do?
Well, I think it's never too late to begin planning. And I think in the LGBT community, there are a number of experts who help with retirement planning and with financial planning and other decisions. And I think sometimes, it's helpful to communicate with somebody who understands your life and your circumstances, and to sit down with them and get a sense of how do I want to live, my next 3-4 decades, depending on how long I live. And what are the kinds of barriers that I will encounter as an LGBT person. It's best, I think, often to work with people who understand that experience, whether they're LGBT or not.
All right. Robert Espinoza is PHI Vice President of Policy. We appreciate your being here on The Move.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.